Hello and welcome to a spooky season edition of Time to Talk Titanic. I am a devil, as you can see, and with me is Ghostface.
That's me.
Excellent. I
I'm
love it
sure my
so much.
voice sounds excellent in this mask.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the really iconic background that you have, people would be like, and I guess also the name in the lower left corner to me, but like people would be like, I wonder who that is. Is it Luke? Is it Sebastian? That's so funny. I love that so much. Yeah. So I mean, I'm going to take these off now.
Oh, please. Oh.
Yeah, that would be a shame. I'm able to breathe for the whole episode, and poor David, he actually,
I think
he dies of like asphyxiation halfway through the episode, and it's just like I don't know.
I just
He
pass out.
becomes unresponsive. Um, so I was kind of before we hit record here, I was saying to the live stream which is going on Instagram, we've got a live audience.
Oh yeah.
I know, very cool. I was just saying, so I've never seen Titanic 666, and I don't need to see it. I just don't. From the trailer, I think we can tell it's
You know what?
Yeah, it's a dumpster
No one
fire.
does.
No,
No one does.
I don't know many people who have. I just think I was saying I think it seems really distasteful, but there are ways to use the Titanic tragedy in a way that I wouldn't even say you're paying homage. Like, so in one of the Ghostbusters films, there's the scene with the Titanic, which pulls up into New York, and it's played for laughs, but I wouldn't say it's played disrespectfully. It's just something that's very iconic and people will get it. And it's New York. It was actually more of a jab at like New York, kind of, not a jab, but like it was a bit of self-awareness. Whereas I just think having zombie Captain Smith.
Yeah, you know, even because all the other zombie passengers that showed up, obviously they weren't trying to be anyone. But there was only one Titanic captain. We know who it is by name.
Yeah. And I mean, they could try and get away with, oh, it's not really Smith, but it's like none of the other crew had a beard. I feel like you weren't allowed to have a beard unless you were the captain. Like you can have a mustache, but you've got to qualify as captain to have a full blown beard.
As it should be.
Absolutely. So yeah, up front, neither of us have seen it. I
have. Have I not told you that? I've seen Titanic.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. So David's seen it. So that's good, actually. I'm really glad that David was able to come on tonight because, again, as I alluded to, David's, I think, pretty qualified to have this discussion with me. So I'm really glad that he was free for it. And he's also seen Titanic 666. So actually, he's done the homework. I'm just fucking running my mouth. Yeah. So, right. Okay. So before we actually get into it then, and the kind of moral, like ethical discussion of should we do this kind of thing, I'd like to hear from you. What did you think of the film?
So if I may provide context with how I rate things, I have this app called Letterbox where you can sort of rate movies and log them, so I can see I've seen 897 movies. And I've only given 35 of them 1 out of 10. Titanic 666 is one of them.
Yeah.
It is absolutely dreadful in every conceivable way. There's not really much more flair I can put into that. It is absolutely
good lord. Like and so if you were being like impartial and kind of having like an objective view of it as someone that, say, put yourself in the mind frame of someone that's not a Titanic enthusiast or doesn't know much about Titanic, would it still be garbage?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, okay.
In my head, 100%. You know, from Asylum Films, which I don't know if you know Asylum Films, but their whole shtick is, they did Sharknado. Their whole shtick is pretend to be a sequel to an establishing franchise. So you have Pacific Rim, they'll release Atlantic Rim, for example. That's a real example. So their whole shtick is that, and obviously they're the ones behind Titanic 2, which I'm sure you've heard about.
I've seen that, and that was kind of the red flag. So when I saw Titanic 666 was coming out, I was like, I've been burned once, you know, shame on you.
Yeah.
If I watch this, shame on me. Like that's my problem. So I avoided it like the plague.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a sequel to that because the ship that the movie takes place on is the Titanic 3.
Kill me now. Kill me now.
It is. It is that. And it's like,
So it's
oh,
actually it's a direct sequel to
it is
Titanic
a
2,
sequel to Titanic 2, yeah,
but it's like a
which is
horror
not a
sequel.
sequel to Titanic 1997 or any other film called Titanic.
No, no, it's just Titanic 2.
Yeah.
That's frightening. That's really terrifying. I hate that for all of us. So it's interesting because I was kind of thinking, I was like, right, how could they have the audacity, the gumption, and the gall to do this? But then actually, I was like, well, people have been doing it forever. Like, again, before we hit record, I was talking about, you've got coming away from the horror genre, just kind of looking at potentially distasteful or cringe takes on Titanic. So you've
Yeah.
got like the animated films with like fucking octopuses that save everyone,
Mm-hmm.
rapping dogs, talking mice, and that was kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to like Don Bluth. So like An American Tail, Disney's Little Mermaid. It kind of like was
I
merging
actually
all of
haven't seen those ones, the animated ones. Although I
again. You're
feel like
not
if I've seen Titanic 666, I might as well go all the way in and watch them.
go hard or go home. Like, why
Yeah.
not add two more films to your 1-star rated films? Because there's two of them. There's
Yeah.
the Titanic. It's got a name, but then there's Titanic. The legend goes on, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, so you're not only ripping off the tragedy of Titanic, but you're ripping off Celine Dion's song title. Like, you're just calling it The Legend Goes On. Like, we won't get that. But they're really bad. But I can see why they did it
Mhm.
because animation was having such a like renaissance. Cartoon musicals were making so much money. So of course, some
Yeah.
random film production studio was going to be like, okay, we'll cash in on that, and they did. They must have made some money from it. And most people in the Titanic community are like, oh, I watched this when I was young because they maybe already had that Titanic obsession going on. I don't think any kids sought that film out, or any parents were like, oh, we should go see that. That looks good. Because it doesn't. But there's always been films that kind of capitalize off of the Titanic tragedy. And I don't think the animated ones are insulting. I don't think the Ghostbusters cameo is insulting. But I think potentially Titanic 6, even like Titanic 2, I don't think it was insulting because it wasn't trying to be Titanic. It was basically like
No,
Poseidon.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
It's
Poseidon wrapped up in
literally,
a Titanic skin.
yeah, I don't know if it needs contextualizing for anyone who might not have seen it, but it's basically a cruise ship that is supposed to celebrate the Titanic by making the Titanic 2, which is identical in some scenes and to the Titanic, and then identical to the Queen Mary in other shots, because of course it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that happens in Titanic 666 or if they just completely gone for a CG model. I don't really care. But yeah,
No,
that's sort
yeah.
of it. And it does the same route, and then weird geographical geological things happen. Wasn't there like a tsunami with icebergs in it at one point? I
Yep.
can't really remember.
It's horrific. It's
That
really,
could be, insulting in a way, but I think it
yeah.
stands as its own sort of entity somewhat.
Yeah, definitely. Whereas with 666, it's starting to bring like the real like figures into it somewhat. And it's just I don't know, I think it's a bit icky. But this has been happening for a long time, not just Titanic horror, but yeah, capitalizing off of the disaster. I mean, people might be aware, we've mentioned it before, but the first film about Titanic starring a survivor came out 28 days after the sinking.
Yeah.
So it's not a new phenomenon. I just think it's getting
Tales
tackier.
from the Titanic, was it called?
Yes, that was the
Um,
name of it.
yeah, if I remember correctly, because it's been lost now. It was lost in a studio fire in 1917 or 1918.
Mhm.
if I remember correctly, it's not about the disaster, but it's about her recounting her experierices in it. I'm not
Yeah, so
entirely sure. It was a short film. It was like maybe 10 minutes, something like that. But yeah.
you're right. The synopsis, it's like so Dorothy Gibson plays, I don't know if she's playing herself or if she's playing like a fictional character, even though she was on the ship.
Yeah.
But definitely the relationship in the film is like fabricated because it's all about like her marriage and how surviving the sinking is affecting her marriage. So actually sounds kind of interesting.
Mm.
But it's still
It
a
still
cash
seems
grab.
kind of exploitational, doesn't it?
Yeah, and like in the promo posters, she was photographed wearing, or there were like promo images because the poster of it, she's wearing like a dress, but she was wearing like a knitted cardigan, when she went on the lifeboat, and she wore that exact same outfit in the film and on like promo images.
Yeah.
So it's definitely cashing in on the disaster, like less than a month later, with a survivor. It's pretty tasteless. And I was really surprised when I found out that it came out so soon after it. Because
Yeah.
we think of 1912 as being this era of like men and women being so like sensible and modest and not salacious. And
Yeah.
actually, when you hear that, it's like that's like the exact reverse of what
Mm.
you'd imagine.
And I was pretty surprised as well, just because of how film was at the time. You know, a ship sinks now, and we have phones that can, oh, let's make our own film about the tragedy or whatever. But back then, you know, how many people had a camera? Not many. Video camera, even less so. And then to film it, presumably edit it
Mhm.
in the whatever way they edited it for it to come out less than a month after.
Yeah,
It's a speedy process that it just shows what its intentions are straight
mhm.
away, which is pretty tasteless, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And then I think the next film after Saved from the Titanic was a film called Atlantic, which came out in 29, I believe.
There's
Is
one
there one?
before that.
Is there one just between those two?
It also came out in 1912, actually, this one. So
The German
it
one. It's a
yeah, in
silent.
Night and Ice, or in Nacht und Eis.
Yeah,
I
which
have
is
seen this one actually.
pretty good. The sets that they make for the wireless room, and then they flood it are pretty cool.
Yeah, isn't it built on something that moves? Because I feel like there was like, when the iceberg hits, it shakes, but it doesn't look like camera shake. It looks like the room shakes, and
Yeah,
like that is very impressive sort of production design.
the whole thing is on YouTube.
Yeah,
I forget the name of the channel, but we'll link it below. However, just be prepared for like motion sickness throughout the whole thing because you're right. It's definitely they've like put it on some kind of device which like moves the whole set and it's effective, but then after a few minutes you do feel kind of queasy.
yeah.
And then in the scene where it hits the iceberg, it's violent as fuck. And like this guy gets like thrown against a wall in what kind of looks like the like Palm Court Cafe-ish kind
Mm.
of.
I mean, they obviously took liberties with the rooms. They probably just made
Yeah,
generic ship room
but
instead
they're
of,
very much just telling the story kind of as they thought it happened. Like
yeah,
they had Captain Smith swim over to a lifeboat with a baby. I'm sure that
yeah,
could be
that
where
was in it.
that kind of started. Um, but it's being very, I guess it is just trying to tell the story. It's honoring the victims. It names them. Um, it's it is what it is. And then you've got Nazi Titanic, which came out like a few decades later,
Yeah,
again made
someone
by the
mentioned that in the
Germans.
chat.
Yeah, but very much kind of disparaging against the Brits and like not sympathetic in the slightest. But Atlantic, so that came out a good 20 odd years later. And there was actually a scene which was removed from the end of the film because they were worried, because by that point, kind of
There's
technology.
1929. Is that the
Yeah, I
same
think
one?
yeah, Atlantic was 1929. So special effects and visual effects had obviously come on a bit since 1912. And there was a scene which depicted the ship kind of sinking and people basically dying and drowning. And it was removed because they just felt it would be too much for people that were still alive and had been on the ship. But then, so okay, that's good. We've got some moral compass somewhere, that we're removing parts of a film that, time and money was spent on, because you're concerned about people who actually lived through that, which I agree with. So where did we go wrong? Where did it all, like, I just think, yeah, I just, where did 9/11, for example, you've got that Nicolas Cage film,
Yeah. There's a Charlie
where,
Sheen one as well.
oh, Jesus, like,
Have you not heard of that one?
I've not seen that one. The Nicolas Cage one, I think it's based on a true story where the firefighters were trapped in like a section of the buildings that hadn't
Yeah.
fully caved in. There's a film called Remember Me, with Robert Pattinson, and Pierce Brosnan plays his dad, and it's
Oh,
set in, yeah, and it's got
I
nothing to
didn't even
do.
watch that one, but my parents were watching it, and I literally had walked into the room at the time where that was the twist for some reason.
And it is literally a twist. It's like a love
Yeah.
story, and it's an okay film. It's just set in New York in 2001, and it's a love story drama between like Robert Pattinson and this wifey whose name I forget. But and yet Robert Pattinson's got like a bad relationship with his dad, and then Pierce Brosnan, they're not speaking, and then he goes to his office to like make up with him, and his dad's late, and then the camera pans out, and you then find out that his dad works in the top of the World Trade Center, and it's like,
Genuinely unbelievable. Genuinely unbelievable.
it's like, and it's almost kind of doing what like James Cameron did with Titanic, but at least with that, going into it, because the film's called fucking Titanic. Like,
Yeah.
if you're shocked at the end that it not only sinks, but that it was the Titanic all along, that's on you. That's a you problem. Whereas people going into the cinema to see Remember Me because Robert Pattinson's a bit of a heartthrob, and I guess Pierce Brosnan is as well.
At the time, yeah, it would have been more or
Yeah,
less.
I think you can be a little bit offended that the twist is something that happened within like a decade or so before that. Like, I just think it's really tacky.
Yeah.
Um,
But the interesting thing is, if we were to do that now, and it's a period film, and the twist is the person is going on board the Titanic, it's not as bad, is it now? I think
no.
we talked about in an earlier podcast about the sort of mythologicalness that the Titanic has now. To do that about 9/11, which is very, very early on, I'm pretty
Yeah.
young and I was alive while it happened. Like, it's just, I
It's
don't know.
still
It
pretty
to me
raw.
is the equivalent of Saved from the Titanic, where, oh, let's get this survivor and let's make her wear the clothes she wore that night. And it's like, I don't know,
Yeah. It
very
it
weird
just
choice.
shows, yeah, the shame button has been completely removed. But actually the shame button kind of arrived not even in 1912, it kind of like arrived a little bit after it. It was like the excitement was too much. Like,
Yeah.
we have to make a film about it. But then, you know, 10, 15 years later, it's like, okay, we maybe, could simmer down a bit. Yeah, I just think the reason that because I could have watched Titanic 666, I could have sought it out and I could have sat down and just for the lols, I could have watched it. If you do want to experience it, we might do a watch along at some point. I'm not promising anything. But Loretta over at Titanic podcast has watched it. She has experienced it firsthand and she had like a watch along reaction thing. So definitely go and check that out. But I could have sought it out, but then just kind of out of principle, I was like, one, I feel like I know what happens. I actually feel like I've already seen it. I feel like I've already watched it and like my brain ejected it like through trauma response.
Anyone could
But
have written it. I mean, it is just crazy woman goes aboard on board. Every other character is pretty unlikable, and then she summons the dead, and then the dead show up, and then also somehow it sinks. I can't remember why, but of course it sinks because of
of
course it.
course, of course it sounds. And then also, how are you going to summon people that died on a ship on a different ship? I even think that's stupid. Like, I'm not saying I believe in ghosts or like, Ouija boards and stuff, although I was like obsessed with like ghost hunting shows growing up. Like, that
Yeah,
was like one of my staples growing up. It was like Titanic and Most Haunted. Like that was pretty much what was going on. But Yeah,
But I would like there, if we are gonna do ghosts, for there to be some sort of internal logic behind them, you know?
yes, yes. I'm gonna have a quick look at the chat and see is because I heard that you were also kind of looking at it as well. I'm gonna see if there's
Yeah.
anything.
Someone mentioned the Nazi propaganda film.
Yeah,
I
that's what
haven't seen it
I
yet,
watch.
but it is one that I am very interested in watching, sort of like as a historical perspective, because I think it is very interesting, these two sort of elements of history coming together. So there's the
It's
Titanic, and then years down the line, there's the exploitation of Titanic for a propaganda piece in World War II. I find that very fascinating, and I sort of wonder if that's a thing that would happen now.
it's really interesting. The sinking scenes, there's some like interior sets that they flood, and they're pretty cool. They're not accurate. The ships look a lot more grand because the Titanic was actually kind of like it kind of toned down the interiors of the ship because the White Star Line wanted its kind of clientele to feel like they were almost at home. So they wanted the like so the grand staircase. That's a room you could see in like a British manor house or something.
Yeah,
It's incredible, but then you
it's
look at the
sort of like
interiors.
a ocean. Sorry to interrupt, but like an ocean hotel sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, and like people criticized it at the time for having like single height rooms, and it's like okay, but then the Lusitania's got like triple height rooms, and like it looks like the Sistine Chapel, and it's incredible. So the sets and the Nazi Titanic look like that, um, which is interesting as well because I think, and German ships were like stunning. Um,
Oh yeah, they knew how to build ships.
yeah, they
They really
really
did.
know how to build them. I have a feeling actually that the White Star Line, possibly Cunard as well, when they merged, they like acquired some German built ships. But I could be I'll need to look up on that
Um,
to be
well,
sure.
after World War One, do you mean?
I think so, yeah.
I don't want to say 100% certainty, but it sounds about right because obviously there was
Yeah,
the sort of punishment after
the
with
Germans were
the
paying like
treaty.
reparations, and yeah, so
Yeah,
that was because I feel like I read that recently. I just can't remember the names of the ships, but yeah, German ships of that kind of era were glorious, and clearly the sets for Nazi Titanic are inspired by that. Um, there's a lot of anti-Semitism. Ismay might as well have a prosthetic nose on. Literally, like speaking of 666, that's his side profile. Like it's ridiculous. It's shocking, and he's portrayed as being a villain and a coward in like every Titanic film, but he's also portrayed as being like really greedy, and it's like
yeah.
how did you also manage to squeeze that in? Like, where did that come from? But yeah, it's awful, but definitely worth watching. Like, I would actually recommend. Yeah, for all the reasons that you stated, David. Um, so someone, Old Shipping Lines, has said, "You're blessed that you have not seen it, sir." I feel pretty blessed actually, having heard from David's harrowing experience. John Christian said, "Better the devil you know." Than the devil who talks about the Titanic. Yep. Very much getting Steps vibes. I like Steps. Yep. Shout out to Steps, I guess.
There's one that says the ex-Imperator, a German vessel, was given to Cunard after World War One and was renamed the RMS Berengaria, if I'm pronouncing that right. But that's sort of what we're
Okay.
talking about. And
Yeah,
we got that was war compensation
that makes
from one of our
sense.
own.
One of our own. Okay, yeah, that's probably what I heard. Review it yourself, friend of the show, who I've been on his podcast, but I don't know if he's been on this yet. It was something that we were going to set up, but we need to do that. So review it yourself said, "Oh, I watched 10 minutes of Titanic 666 last night. Funny enough, dreadful. There aren't enough negative words."
They are.
Yeah. Corey, have you seen the Nazi? Oh yeah, that was the Nazi
Yeah,
war propaganda
that's what
one. Yep.
prompted that conversation. I still haven't seen it, but I'd love to. Very interested in that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
in a way, that is being done now, isn't it?
Was.
Because in Hollywood, you can't make a movie if you want the American military to be in your movie for them to support it. They have to have a big say in the film. I don't know if you're aware of this,
Is
but
that what happened with Top Gun Maverick, because I feel like Top Gun Maverick is
Top Gun
very,
Maverick, I can't imagine it not having the
yeah.
American army not having a hand in it. Because I mean, I haven't seen it, but it's pretty obvious that it's glory,
Speaking
glorious,
of,
glorious
yeah,
to
like
war.
propaganda, it's like
Yeah,
American just propaganda for the USA.
it is. It genuinely is propaganda, and things like I think Independence Day also is like I'm not sure if they did it or not. I think there was an example of a film that decided to not to reject a lot of money in order to keep the film sacred. I'm not sure if that was
Yes.
one. But yeah, the American military have a big hand in Hollywood films that feature the American military. And so obviously
Ah,
you can't criticize it or be overtly negative about it. And is that
yeah.
not now a form of modern propaganda? Was Pearl Harbor something that the American military had a hand in the movie Pearl Harbor?
True.
Is
And
that not
actually,
now the exploitation of a tragedy from the past modernized as propaganda?
and Pearl Harbor was actually a direct reaction to Titanic because they wanted to kind of have that same, there's a love triangle. It's set in a historic period. It's even got like Faith Hill sings "There You'll Be." Celine Dion was approached with the song, and it's a great song. And Celine Dion was like, "Really? Like, really? Like, no, no." So yeah, Pearl Harbor was like trying to be. In fact, Lindsay Ellis, who's one of my favorite YouTuber video essayists, she kind of discussed this. I think she did a whole video essay on Titanic, um, and I think the title was like, "Is Titanic good actually?" Because it gets a lot of hate for being very 90s. But then she mentions Pearl Harbor and she's like, Titanic had Fabrizio, who was like the kind of like funny sidekick best friend. And then she's like, Pearl Harbor's got like eight. And then she goes, there's a Fabrizio, there's a Fabrizio. And so like, so all these characters are just basically Fabrizio, but like there's eight of them. So, and Pearl Harbor's, it's okay. But when you watch it, if you watch it through the lens of imagine this is Titanic, you can kind of see what she means by that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Faith Hill, it's a great song. There You'll Be, cries.
That's so
So
interesting how it was so sort of obvious with what inspired it. And then as if it wasn't obvious enough, they were like, Celine Dion, do you wanna
yeah,
do a song for us?
it's so bad, so bad. It'd be like someone starting a podcast called Let's Talk Titanic and asking you to be in it. Like, hey, do you want to be in a podcast called Let's Talk?
Yeah.
And you'd be like,
Time to talk
that's
Lusitania.
yeah, like seems a bit reductive,
Yeah,
but
that's right.
okay. Yeah, so I think it's bad. To kind of tie it into what's happening very much nowadays, true crime, and especially Netflix with like
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Dahmer,
Yeah.
the whole Jeffrey Dahmer thing. I think it's really, I think there is a conversation to be had because okay, Titanic 666 is like super campy and it's a horror film and you shouldn't take it too seriously, but
It sure didn't take itself too seriously.
definitely
You
not.
could tell.
But it does open up a dialogue and it kind of sets a precedent that everything's fair game. And that also extends to like people who were murdered, you know, just a few years before you and I were born. Um, because like the families of the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer have come out like very much against Netflix and Ryan Murphy's newest production for them. I watched the first episode. I do plan on maybe watching a few more, but I don't know if I'm just getting sensitive in my old age, but like, because I love horror. Like I've got like Final Destination up there, like Saw, Hostel. I don't mind a bit of like gore, like horror. Like I don't mind, but it's something about when it's like when it actually happened, it makes me feel
Yeah.
really uneasy. Like the first episode of Dahmer, I don't know if you've seen it, but I had to like, so when you're on Netflix and you fast forward, you can see it playing out. And
Yeah.
I was like, I just want to know, does this guy that I've just gotten to know, does he survive? And he does, because the first episode is Dahmer getting caught, and then I'm assuming it will go back and it will, follow the story from there on. But I was like, it just feels different when it's like real people. And I think that's why I've got such a visceral hatred for a film that I've never seen, the Titanic 666, because it, that is meant to be loosely Captain Smith, and I just think that's really icky.
Yeah. And also a violinist. So
Oh God.
I remembered it just being Captain Smith, but when I Google image Titanic 666, I see a zombie violinist. So that is now
Wallace
two
Hartley.
historical figures that are definitely, you know who they are, you know them by name,
Yeah.
you can open their Wikipedia page at any point.
That would be like a good drinking game for this film. Take a shot every time you see someone that could be a real person. Like
Yeah.
you'd be legless before the film's done. Yeah. So Old Shipping Lines has said the dad of Dahmer is suing Netflix. So the dad of the actual fucking murderer himself is suing them. So that's that's pretty telling.
Yeah.
I just think it's really. I mean, I'd like to go back and see when was the first inflatable Titanic slide produced and sold. When did they start selling them? Even the models that break apart, that you can put them in the bathtub. Like Chandler has two. There was someone put up a video of their kid at the beach with one the other day, and all the comments from grown adults were like, "Oh my god, they're so rare. Where'd you get that?" And even that, I'm like, okay, Titanic models, model making is such a thing. I was looking up recently about when Titanic models first were kind of getting made in I think it was the early to late 70s. They basically just used Olympics blueprints, but then when the wreck was discovered, they had to update them because, so for instance, because I was doing a drawing of the bow, and that was what kind of got me looking at it. So there's four skylights above the crew galley, so the kitchen essentially where the crew's food was made. And Olympic didn't have that, and it's because during and there was also a chimney thing that kind of comes out from there and goes up behind the mast, where the crow's nest is. So obviously Andrews during Olympic's first voyage was taking lots of notes, and clearly the chefs and the crew galley wanted natural light, and they needed a way to get whatever out of the kitchen, and it was because they don't have a funnel, there had to be some kind of chimney or something made, which then on Titanic was up at the mast. So little things like that were discovered when the wreck was discovered have been added to models. And I think that's really interesting. I think, having an appreciation for the ship and just wanting to build it and paint it and display it and put lights in it, do that all day long. Do that until the cows come home. But then when you're making little plastic models that break apart in the wrong place, by the way, that's a little bit. But then that conversation can then spiral to the real-time syncing animations, like the live streams every year. Titanic Animations, I think, does them. Honor and Glory, Historical FX with Tom Linsky. Should we also be having a conversation about the kind of the morality and the ethics of that? Because although they're educational, it's also in the last one I saw from Historical FX, which had the authors and historians behind On a Sea of Glass helping him, you also had little animated people, which I remember seeing slide off the stern when it breaks and fall into
I remember that.
Yeah, and it's we get that probably did happen, but do we need to see it? I think the conversation kind of extends into lots of different areas.
Although at least you can see a more sort of educational context behind it, a toy that you can do is a bit, I'd argue, less educational than this is the Morse code and this happened at this time. And that is what interests me. And I think just hearing it as well, hearing all the whilst this boat is lowering and then this and that, I get goosebumps, at those kind of things.
I remember the first real-time animation I watched live stream, and you're totally right. You feel so immersed in it, especially when the people, and I mean this in a nice way, when the people that are narrating it stop talking for a prolonged period of time, because say they just kind of want to let things play out, and maybe there's bits of text that they don't need to say anything. And you can just hear the steam coming out the funnels, and you can hear the Marconi machine and maybe the cranking of the davits, and you just feel so immersed in it.
And then the music comes in.
Oh, the music. That
Yeah.
zombie violinist, the wee zombie brings out
Mhm.
his violin and he starts. Question: did the zombie have his violin on him?
Yes, that's how you know. That's how I knew he was the violinist. So
He
according to the rules of spirits, you know, you die,
never
but
let
if you
go.
come back, you have your clothes on you, and also items that you are holding in your hand, according to the internal logic of Titanic 666.
That is hilarious. Literally never let go. If you die with an instrument in your hand, you better keep holding that instrument.
Oh,
Yeah,
you better love that instrument because that is with you
that's
forever.
hilarious. Yeah, I think the real time syncing animations, they definitely are like purely educational. But then there is that, it's kind of like, I've mentioned this before, it's kind of our fault, like the general public who are also Titanic enthusiasts. Like a really good example of this is the YouTube channel Historic Travels.
Yeah,
I think the guy's name is Sam that does it. So his channel was just kind of chugging along. And then he did one video where the title was like, were there people alive inside the Titanic when it went down? And the thumbnail was, an image of the ship, the stern going under the water, like underwater, and exploding, and and that video blew up, and it was getting shared on like every Facebook group, like had so many comments, and that video really got his channel. His channel just exploded from that. And that kind of shows, this guy who's clearly knowledgeable and he's talking about all these, different things to do with the ship and the aftermath and the sinking. But then he does one video about, did people's brains implode and were they alive and were there air pockets? Like that was the video that got his channel to like fucking
yeah.
skyrocket.
The weird, morbid curiosity side of things.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I can't blame people. We all have these kind of
Mhm.
thoughts, and I think the reason we brought it up before is because of the whole 9/11 Titanic parallels that we were drawing. It is a lot of morbid curiosity.
Yeah, I remember,
And
yeah.
yeah, and as much as I say it's our fault, I don't mean that like you know, human's going to human. Humans are just going to kind of think about like mortality and gruesomeness, and it's kind of what draws us towards these things. It's not necessarily what keeps us there. It might be the engineering that keeps you there, or the people and their backstories. But I think part of the initial draw is the kind of mortality of it, even if you don't have the vocabulary to kind of vocalize that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that is a good point.
yeah. But yeah, that kind of that sums up our spooky season episode or Halloween episode of
I
Time to
did
Talk
I did want
Titanic.
to bring up just one thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We were talking about, Titanic, 9/11, dropped a bit of Pearl Harbor.
Uh-huh.
Have you watched the movie The Impossible?
Oh yes. Yep.
So that only came out 8 years after the tsunami,
Yep.
and I don't think, I could be wrong. I have never seen any criticism about it in terms of sort of exploiting the disaster
Yeah.
or having a sort of agenda. And it came out pretty soon after the disaster. Lots of people, lots of living memories. Obviously, loads of people who survived that still alive.
Because was
Um,
that the Boxing Day tsunami, which
yeah,
happened in
the
like 2000?
2004
Mhm,
tsunami. Yeah, and
mhm.
then the movie comes out in 2012.
So this film, it's a very well made film. It's got
It
Naomi
is
Watts, Ewan McGregor, and Tom Holland. I think it's his first film.
is
Um,
if one of, if not his first. Yeah.
yeah. And another wee boy who isn't Tom Holland or Ewan McGregor, so it's irrelevant. And there's a scene where Naomi Watts is under the water, and I looked it up because I was drawing a picture of Rhoda Abbott underwater, and it's a drawing I want to return to because I want to do it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And the scene of Naomi Watts underwater, and there's like cars, an elephant, people, wood, trees, like telephone poles, all under the water, like floating past her, and she's like cut up and she's bleeding, but it's a really beautiful scene. But I'm sure in the moment, because it's a true story, it's, you know, two parents and two kids that are separated, but they all survived miraculously, and they find each other. But I'm sure when she was underwater, it wasn't this beautiful slow motion shot, and the filter they put over it, it's almost like a rainbow. It's really bizarre, but it's a
Yeah,
stunning
it's
scene.
a good image, but I mean, obviously, it would be very violent and dirty. You know, that is what.
Yeah.
If you put a camera and do that underwater, you're not seeing anything.
Mm.
So I've opened up the Wikipedia page and it says that a British survivor thought it was beautifully accurate, but that was a response in critics commenting that the film is overdramatic and
Mm.
whitewashed, which I think is a point because
Yeah.
obviously the perspective is of this what was it, British family or American family, one of the two, in there. But obviously there were loads of tourists there, loads of tourists affected, but the home
Mm.
countries and the people that are from those countries are absolutely the most affected.
Yeah.
Not to trivialize the damage done to the tourists, but you know, if you've survived and you made it, you get to go home.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't, because a lot of them lost their homes. And you know, it's sort of, why do we get this perspective? Is it because the whole family survived? But what about, you know, they obviously meet a lot of locals, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not their perspective. And so perhaps that is a point of contention in that as well.
I wonder if any of the proceeds of that film went to kind of any charitable causes that were helping with, because I remember recently reading something about, it was the like Haiti earthquake or something, and how there's still regions of Haiti that have not changed and have not been rebuilt since that happened, and that happened in like
80
2000,
was it, wasn't that
2007,
2008 or something?
2008, yeah, like ages ago, and there's still parts of that that look like they did in 2007 or 8.
2010.
Or was it 2010?
Yeah.
So, you know,
So it's
just
12 years now.
yeah, it's not good. And I just wonder, like, did any of the money from The Impossible, which again, it's a very good film, but I'm really glad you brought that up, because it kind of, it's different in that it focuses rightly or wrongly on this one family. Obviously, because I think maybe one of them wrote a book, or their story was that
I think, yeah,
inspired
it
the film.
might have been a book. And it's also
Yeah.
the impossible because in spite of all the tragedy, this one family somehow managed to all entirely split up
Yeah.
and all entirely come together and all survived. I think that's sort of why. And
Mm.
I don't, you know, sort of blame them for taking that perspective, but it is interesting to talk about, I reckon.
Oh yeah, it's super interesting.
Because that's
Yeah.
what the Nicolas Cage 9/11 film did, isn't it? It took the
It's,
perspective of two firefighters.
yeah.
Now, was that the right or wrong thing? Whatever, but you know, it wasn't
Yeah.
the tower or this whole office block or I don't know.
Mm.
The Charlie Sheen film, I don't know if they're based on any real people, but it's about a
Mhm.
group of people trapped in a lift. And all I've seen
Oh.
of it is the ending, and it's basically firefighters come and take them out of the lift, and Charlie Sheen is the last one left in the lift. And then a
Mm.
firefighter stretches his hand out to him, and then you hear the building collapse, and then it cuts to black, and it's like, that's a
Oh.
bit. That does
Icky.
give me icky vibes, very
Yeah.
icky vibes.
I think what it comes down to is, if you're going to kind of make a film about something, especially that was like within living memory, you've like, people should maybe take a step back and think, right, why are we making this? If it's just to tell an incredible story that seems impossible, you know, should we be doing something, you know, like I was saying about a certain percentage of ticket sales will go towards like a rebuilding effort for that region. Um, but then also there's a whole thing about like, okay, it might make people feel better, but do we need to do that? You know, do movie executives need to do those kind of things? And maybe the answer is no. Maybe they don't have to. And then, so when you get past living memory and you get to the point where everyone that experienced that is like dead, in the case of Titanic, um, is it then okay to start building slides and making like weird campy horror films and like rapping dogs? Like, is it okay? because
Yeah.
it's not affecting anyone that was actually affected at the time. It's like technically, yeah, but morally, like you said, it's icky. It's like it's not.
It's a literal water grave that you're
Mm,
sort of building merchandise and selling toys about. It's,
yeah.
feel free, because no one is going to contest you on that. But also, it is weird. I haven't seen a single thing on the Wikipedia page. Maybe I'm missing it about
Mm,
them giving any money away to any sort of charitable cause.
mm.
That's not to say they haven't. I'm not really seeing it.
Yeah, we're not seeing it there. Yeah, definitely. That's one that I've never really considered before until we started talking. Was the whole the toy models that like break apart. Like it's really interesting. Like why? Um, I guess it's kind of cool, and but especially boys are like, carnage and like a ship that breaks. Like wow. Like, but you know, people did die that way. As much
Yeah.
as I was saying it was a bit weird seeing little animated people falling into the break of the ship, like people did actually die like that. Um, I won't name names, but I had someone message me recently, and they were kind of like spitballing ideas for something they want to write, and they they said, as we know, um, sparks and flames came out of one of the funnels. What if in my story or my script, they hit someone and that person goes on fire and they have to jump into the ocean to put it out? And I read that and I was really shocked. But I also got the impression that the person maybe wasn't, you know, they're maybe neurodivergent. So I just replied very diplomatically, and I was like, okay, that's a thing you could write. No one could stop you. But all I would say is, what's the benefit of adding that? What does it add to the
Yeah.
story? Because a big part of writing is what you don't include, rather than
Cut out
what
the
you.
fluff. Cut
Yeah,
out the fluff. I've learned that the hard way.
cut out the fluff, and I feel like some poor sod getting set on fire from a funnel and jumping into the sea to cool off is fluff.
It is
Especially
fluff
because
because
maybe
there's no proof that it happened.
there's no proof that it happened. David,
You
yep,
can
you
you
read
can
my mind.
include people slipping into the crack of the stern because there is sort of the idea that it could have happened. The spark fire thing, people would have noticed that. I'd like to think.
And I also said to him, it would actually come across as like unintentionally comical. You know,
100%.
just how unlucky would you have to be to not only be on a sinking ship, but for some random
Be hit by
funnel
the
to
one
explode?
spark that just combusts you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like what? I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. But like I said, I felt slightly sympathetic for the person that messaged me, and I just said, look, you do you, boo. But I think that's a bad look, and I think you shouldn't do it. But like I said before, human's going to human. So
Regarding a human, yeah. There's two questions in the chat from old shipping lines. I don't know if we want to do that now or after.
yeah, absolutely.
So the first one here is, what would your opinions on a movie about the RMS Empress of Ireland be?
Mm,
Um, if I can be completely and utterly honest,
mm,
it has to justify, if it's going to exist, it has to justify its own existence. Why are we making a movie about the RMS Empress of Ireland if not to just be like, look, another cool, expensive sinking
mhm.
shot? What's the story of the Empress of Ireland that we want to tell? You know?
Yeah. Mhm. I think it's really funny. Like, so you're saying like justify its own existence, and I was thinking like, how did James Cameron in 20th Century Fox justify Titanic's existence in '97? Actually, James Cameron very much was like, I'm making this film because I can, and because I want to dive to the wreck. So he was, oh yeah, I need
Yeah.
to go to the wreck to get footage. And they were like, okay, that sounds expensive. And he was like, for it is, it's fucking expensive. And then he was just like, oh shit, I've got to make a film now. Fuck. So he wrote Romeo and Juliet and set it on the Titanic, and it worked. But it was very much like a child who had walked into a candy shop and someone was like, here's all the money in the world, go wild. And he went wild. But I guess the justification was in how much money it made.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think ultimately that is how it started, yeah. But there are obviously elements in the movie that eventually detailed in sort of treatment of third class and other sort of interesting.
yeah.
But yeah, it didn't start off that way, did it? No. Um, but then you've got your Titanic epics.
Mm-hmm.
What is the need of making one on the Empress of Ireland? Is it to
Yeah.
educate people on a lesser known shipwreck, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly. Are we not just doing the Titanic again, but on a smaller ship?
I that's actually a really good point. I think I mean, look at that Netflix show that's coming out. Is it 1899? And
Yes.
they've kind of used the Lusitania, definitely the style of ship, because it's got like that huge back end, and the funnels are like more forward. Um, it basically looks like the Lusitania, but everyone in the comments that I've seen share it on Facebook is like, oh, it looks like Titanic. Oh, it's a four-funneled ship. It looks like Titanic. And it's like every film about a ship is just going to be compared to Titanic.
Always, yeah.
Or Poseidon, depending on how it sinks. There's also going to be some Poseidon, like
Yeah.
I described Titanic 2
If
as
it's got
Poseidon.
funnels, if it is Titanic, if it's like a modern cruise ship, it's Poseidon.
I mean, when are they going to make a Costa Concordia film? You know,
Are they?
um,
Is there a
or
need for it?
or series. There's not a need for it, but then it's like, was there
Can
a need?
can anything triumph the documentary that was made with footage from the actual
Oh,
ship? You know?
yeah, that was a properly, but then so actually a good example of this, Netflix can do really good documentaries about true crimes. They did Making a Murderer,
Yeah.
and at first, because they're so well made and well crafted, you think that Dylan and Stephen Avery did just fucking team up and kill this poor real estate woman. But then actually halfway through, you realize that the evidence is like non-existent, and that the sheriff in this small town had it in for the Averys, and to the point where after this Netflix documentary came out, Dylan, the nephew, was like freed. He was exonerated and he was out of jail, but Stephen Avery, apparently there was still evidence against him. But I
Yeah.
think eventually in time he will also get let out. But it's
I
like
think COVID
Netflix.
kind of messed things up in that regard, but you know,
Yeah,
the sooner they can go back into it, I reckon we might be seeing that soon.
yeah.
Who
I
knows?
think I think that will happen. But because you're so right, you've got to justify why we're making this. And Netflix, I think, in that instance, were like, it's a great fucking story, but also we might potentially save two innocent men. And that's a
Hmm.
really, really good justification for making something. But then Netflix also are the studio that make Dahmer.
Yeah.
And and what's the justification in that? Apparently none.
Hmm.
They said that they wanted to elevate the voices of the victims, which were largely Black and largely LGBT, but the relatives and the community,
Weren't consulted. Yeah.
yeah, they weren't consulted, and they were like, actually,
If
it's
if
basically just Evan Peters porn. Like that's
yeah,
essentially all. It's like Ryan Murphy's just doing
of American Horror Story fame,
yeah.
coincidentally enough. Yeah.
James Cameron was like, I want to visit the wreck of Titanic, and Ryan Murphy was like, I want to see Evan Peters in like a white Y front and jerking
Yeah.
off. Like essentially and that's what it is.
If
Is
the
that a good
voices were
job?
so important, why don't you consult real voices during the
Yes.
process?
Yes. So yeah, Empress of Ireland, if they were going to make anything about the Empress of Ireland or the Andrea Doria or all these the Bismarck, like so many ships, I think they are just going to be compared to Titanic. And I also think studios would be scared to touch it
Mm.
because of that. They'd be like, we're never going to make as much money as Cameron did, so what's the point? And there's like rumors that Disney wants to remake Titanic. And even I know, I think it's ridiculous. They wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. A big part of why I meant to mention this,
So they can
a
add a
big,
Titanic Disney attraction.
yeah, and they'll
Probably.
turn Rose into a Disney princess. That's what will happen. But a big reason why you know, they make films about Titanic of all different genres is because at this point it's like it's an IP. It's like an intellectual property, like Marvel, like Harry Potter, like Lord of the Rings. It's a very recognizable brand. So you're guaranteed to make some money using it because people will automatically think of the film or they'll think of the very known historical tragedy because it's so synonymous at this point. So actually, it's a very safe bet to use Titanic. That's why Disney is remaking all of their animated films
Yeah,
because it's a safe bet. People
and it's to
recognize
keep
it.
the sort of old copyrights as well and all this. They're all dog crap. They're all bad.
That
Every
all
single
that crap. But like, and that's why it seems like in Hollywood nowadays, there's not much kind of new adventurous kind of
Mhm.
content. It's like sequels, it's kind of tentpole things like Marvel, like DC,
Yeah.
Star Wars. It's just, there's not
Who
much
also
risk.
feature American military, can I just say?
Oh yeah, Jesus.
It's all propaganda.
Yeah, it just seems like there's no risk anymore, and the biggest risk that people are willing to take is to use an old tragedy to make a weird fucking horror film. And it's like
Mhm.
no, do better than that. Like there should be people should be making films, or Netflix, if they were smart enough, would make a Titanic series and do it really well and spend a lot of money on it and tell amazing stories about the people involved and what they went through. But because people are just going to compare it to Titanic, they don't want to do that. And because Netflix is a company like any other, if they think they're not going to make enough, not money, because but memberships, like if people are going to sign up or stay signed up for it,
Yeah.
then
They've
they're
got
just
flagship shows, Stranger Things is one of the major ones.
yeah.
Um, they've got Squid Game now, which is going to have a season 2. I'm no doubt in my mind that's going to be a flagship show for them. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for flagship shows, and they'll make smaller ones that have their own little followings and then cancel them when they're 3 seasons in and end in a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
But they need they need flagship shows.
they need
Is a Titanic story going to be a flagship show for them? Because it is going to be a big investment to be
yeah.
faithful, to look great. These are big considerations because you'll have a lot of nerds going like, oh, that sort of wood paneling is out of place. Oh, that
Yeah.
room didn't flood like that. And that's that's something you have to take on board if you want to do a movie about it or a show.
That's it. So it would draw people like us in, but and so that's almost why I'm like, I don't think Disney would ever touch Titanic, because if they're going to remake it, let's say I've often joked about who I would cast as like Jack and Rose. I think Florence Pugh would make a great Rose, and I think potentially Andrew Garfield, or maybe actually someone that isn't white would actually be better. So maybe casting someone that is more of a Fabrizio aesthetically as Jack would be better if he was meant to be like third class. Um, but they just wouldn't do it because they're never going to make as much money. But then actually, I say that and I'm like, maybe out of curiosity, people would just watch it to be like, is it as good? Like, is it, what have they done
Yeah.
differently?
What scares me is that Disney, absolutely, if there's one company that has the money to try and attempt to do Titanic again, it is Disney. It's no one else. And
And
that's
if you
that's a
if
scary
you
thought to me.
if you look at the Marvel films recently and their special effects, they're shit.
They're
So
awful. That's
they're
terrible.
so bad. I mean, a lot of the scenes in Titanic, which came out in '97, have actually aged better than some Marvel films that have come out in the last
A
three
billion
years.
percent.
Yeah, it's really bad, but it's because I listen to a lot of these kind of like the kind of behind the scenes stories of the makings of these movies, and basically they'll say, right, we're making this film, and this is when it's coming out, and they've got to work to that. And sometimes they'll move the release date, and it's happened a lot in COVID, which is kind of understandable. But then that means you've got visual effects artists who are trying to do all these like CGI things in a very like set deadline. But then there's script changes that happen like on the fly. So then they come to these people and they're like, we know that you're really busy, but we've just changed the script, so you now need to do this. And that's why you've got Spider-Man looking like he's made of Play-Doh. When
Marvel
he's
is
like,
absolutely the worst culprit in treatment of VFX artists, and I've been seeing a lot of stuff come out about that. Avengers Endgame released a month earlier than it was originally going to release, and the VFX artists found that out through a press release, not because they were told by Marvel themselves. And I think that is absolutely insane. And I love that there's sort of these sort of whistleblowers about VFX artists, because I think
yeah,
it is time we start treating them with the respect they deserve. Because no one is going to a Marvel movie for the amazing writing or the
no,
directive voice or the characters, because of besides the ones that they're used to. There's not a lot of good characterization. It's very basic.
mm,
They're coming because it's flashy and there's all these cool lights. And there's VFX artists that are doing that. They're
yeah.
creating it, they're making it happen.
And Marvel's going through a bit of a slump now. Like their last few films have not made like Avengers Endgame levels of money, and I get that that was kind of like the end of a whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just
I think
not making money.
Spider-Man did pretty well. I'm not
Yes,
sure about the others. I think Eternals is the one that I can think of that definitely underperformed
Eternals was
according to
the
expectations.
worst performing one, and I thought when I saw the trailers for that,
Visually, it actually is one of the better ones as well.
I thought it looked pretty fucking cool. Like, and it was playing on this concept of like superheroes being gods, which I think is really, really
Yeah.
interesting. And I think that's what I like about DC, because DC is a bit grittier and a bit darker, and it plays on this whole idea of like, them being like gods. But yeah, people just didn't fucking show up for
No.
Eternals, which and with
It's
such a
a hard
lineup.
sell. It is a very hard sell. There is
Yeah.
absolutely no connection to sort of any established franchise. You're introducing, what was it, like 9 unique characters that you have to now sell to the audience. You have to like every single one of these.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and it shows in the numbers that it didn't exactly work out as well.
You're probably right. And then with something like Marvel, there's so many films and TV shows. It's like homework. You've got to consume it all to really get it. And I think people are being selective now with what they're watching. So they're like, do I need to watch this? If it doesn't tie into the films, probably not. So then they're just not getting Disney Plus, or they're not, you know, yeah. So I can understand that. But I am slightly terrified now that Disney is going to ruin Titanic, that they're going to, because they love a remake, that they're going to just do a terrible CGI version of Titanic and it'll be horrible.
If
I
they're gonna
think
make
it's
Titanic, I think it is good that the 90 the James Cameron version exists, because we have something to look forward to now. Because if you look at superhero films in the past, the CGI is pretty dated, and so they can get away with making it look slightly sleeker, and it still looks good. Whereas we
yes,
have it's like the Jurassic World movies. Um, they're terrible. The
yeah,
dinosaurs look great though, and the dinosaurs look great because they had Jurassic Park, the original staple, to look up to, and those dinosaurs look great. And if they look great in the 90s, we have to make them look great now. I think
exactly.
Disney physically, if they're going to remake Titanic, if you're watching Mr. Disney, don't. But if they
Don't.
are, they have that template that they have to, at bare minimum, match. So
Yes.
that's at least there's that. That's a
So
good thing.
we're gonna put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Also,
Mr. Disney.
treat your VFX artists.
Yeah,
What is wrong with you?
but because what is wrong with you? Oh God, right. So John Christian, imagine Mickey Mouse ears on the stern. I am now. That's terrifying. Um, the only good Disney remake was Cinderella, in my opinion. I think it was also the best performing. I think it made a
I
lot
think
of
so.
money.
And
Yeah,
critically, it is the best one.
yeah. And Maleficent, I liked Maleficent. It was good. Speaking of Angelina Jolie, she was in Eternals, and I thought she looked awesome in that, but she didn't draw in an audience. She didn't bring in those ticket
Don't,
sales.
don't
Um,
think she was that interesting character. Don't think any of them were though. Especially the
nah.
main ones. There was like 2 main ones, weren't there? The Superman clone and the one played by Gemma something. Can't remember now. And they're
Um,
like the most. They're great acting wise. They're great, but the characters are really boring.
yeah,
And there's
it's
no doubt that it didn't draw in a crowd.
oh, but John, you've also said, not gonna lie, Netflix would win me back if they made a Titanic show. I honestly think they should. I really do. Again, it's an interesting one because as long as So it's not like releasing a film, you know, and Netflix doesn't spend money on promotion because they put all their promotions on, okay, their social media, which is free, more or less, and their streaming platform. So they don't need to pay for like, you know, a lot of promotion like cinemas do. Um, so when they make something, they can afford to spend a shit ton of money on it. Like Sandman, I think, is their most expensive show they've ever made, and
Yeah,
it's
I started
done.
it. I haven't finished it, but it looks great. I
Yeah,
was
and
enjoying it. I haven't finished it yet.
it's so random. Like they're trying to spend Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon levels of money, which is smart because that is what draws people in and keeps them there. But they just need to see that their subscriber rate is either going up or is staying level. And they've kind of gone through a period where they're actually bleeding a lot of subscribers, which is why they're now introducing Netflix with ads. You can now have Netflix with ads, which is fucking insane. But this is the world we live in.
Streaming is literally invented to replace cable, and now it's becoming cable.
Yeah, it's becoming
What?
cable, and it's shocking. I never thought I'd see the day where that happened, but so the only way that they would do a Titanic show is if they thought for a second that like everyone like within the Titanic community was going to like come onto Netflix and stay on Netflix. But you can't really milk Titanic for a lot. You know, you could do a one-off series of it, and they might, but I feel like nowadays, one-off series, that's not going to cut it. You want to make a show like
No.
Squid Game, like Stranger Things, that's
Queen's
going to
Gambit was a
have.
good one that paid off though.
Yeah, that's
Limited
true.
series.
That's very true. I've not seen that. It looks really good though. I like Anya Taylor-Joy.
It's
She's got a
great.
good look.
It is great. Great
Yeah.
story.
But yeah, an interesting one. I like this. Has been a really good conversation.
Yeah.
It's gone into a lot of different areas, which I think is good because not only have we been thinking about, you know, should you make these things, but we've also discussed if you're going to, why and how. You know, how are you going to go about doing it, which I think is really interesting. Netflix should just hire me and David, and me and David will man the Titanic division of Netflix, or Disney, you know, or that.
Whoever pays the most money, hello.
Whoever, you know, I'll trade in my devil horns for Mickey Mouse ears, gladly.
Dream isn't owned by Disney, is it?
Shocking, really sad.
If we're gonna end this, I think it would be good to end on a question that I've seen old shipping lines asked twice as perhaps closing notes, and they ask if they would make a new Titanic movie, what would you like to see?
Oh, what a good question. Personally, I would just like to see them use no fictional characters, so only, you know, characters that were like real. I'd like to see them base the scripts, so have a writer's room that is reading survivor testimony, inquiry notes, have people involved like the Cameron film, you know, have historians involved, but more recent historians. So don't bring on like Ken Marshall. I mean, you can do it for the laughs because he was involved with the Cameron film, but bring on like the Honor and Glory team, bring on Tom Linsky,
On a Sea of Glass team.
On a Sea of Glass, you know, Tad Fitch and you know, Kent Layton, like all these people that are like researching it currently and know how it looked. Have it be scary, because it would have been pretty fucking scary. You know, don't have it. You know, there needs to be a balance.
They could utilize lighting in a bit more of an interesting way than the Cameron film did.
Yes. Like you need to have your actors and your sets lit, but then you also need to take a step back and say, actually, to create a certain kind of environment and like ambiance and feeling and vibe, it has to be lit a certain way. And I think when you've got a white light that almost looks like the moon shining on everything, it just, you know,
obviously, it's obvious that the big problem was that everyone needs to be lit, which is just using ship lighting and no moon, impossible. But I think now that that's happened, they are going to be doing Titanic stuff. Play with the lighting more. You know, there's the whole sequence with Rose saving Jack, and the water is neon blue, and the corridor is really well lit. And you know, if you have dimming or you know your red lights as it dims, I think you can be really playful with the lighting in a way that is also true to the disaster, but also really visually sort of effective.
And I think actually dramas and stuff are going that way. So I recently watched The Tourist, which was I think a BBC production, and it's set in Australia, and it was starring Jamie Dornan of 50 Shades fame,
Yeah.
and basically just a guy wakes up with amnesia and he's in Australia, and it's like a comedy crime thing. It was okay, but my biggest criticism was it was so fucking dark, and like even outdoor shots that were in the middle of the day in Australia were pitch black, and I was like, I can't see what's going on. But then I took a step back and I was like, well, I'm the guy that's like on my soapbox saying if they make Titanic, make it dark. But then I got annoyed watching a show that was dark. So there's a way to do it. And I think it can be done. But I think and like look at the Harry Potter films, like as they progressed, they got super dark, like
Yeah.
visually dark. But it works because the story is dark. So it's all about like the color gradients and the saturation and the contrast, the exposure. Like there's ways to do it, but I think
Don't
lean
go
into
one
that.
way and don't go the other. You need
Yeah,
a banging cinematographer, basically, is what I'm saying. You need a
yeah.
really good one who has a great lighting team. Bring them as a package together. I think you could work some magic there.
Oh yeah, totally.
I
And yeah, and just tell the stories that actually happened on the ship because there were
Mhm.
so many incredible fucking like Lightoller. If he was the main character like he is in A Night to Remember, um, use him, utilize him because his story is fucking incredible.
Yeah. I think if I were to answer the question myself, I think is it too late to make a Titanic epic? I think it might be. I think
Mm.
we've got an old retro version in Night to Remember, and we've got a slightly modern version in Cameron's Titanic. I think trying it again is just sort of too much of a throw of the dice. So
Mm.
if I wanted a Titanic movie, I think focus on a niche of the Titanic. I think make one about, I might have said this before, make one on, the Marconi room.
Mhm. Mm.
I know what was it, Tom Linsky made one, but I think, like a big budget sort of one room drama, which there are loads of. You could
Yeah.
get the dialogue, mint, fantastic film right there. Or The Inquiry. The Inquiry is
Mhm.
very interesting. I know there's a film about that as well, but it's a small sort of like TV film. I think if you make it big budget, get your Aaron Sorkin dialogue there, I think you've got a phenomenal
Oh,
film ready
because
to be made
there's
right
no
there.
flashbacks in that as far that go to the sinking anyway, because obviously it's told
I'd
from the
love that.
cal.
I think, yeah, I had an idea. I don't know if they're making one. I thought I saw pictures behind the scenes, but I was like, how cool would it be if you could get like the same moment flashback to 5 times throughout the inquiry, and there's a different thing in all of them. It's sort of
Oh,
like,
oh
in its
wow.
testimony that it's not all reliable. It
Yes.
opens the question. Do your research, basically. It
Yeah.
will open that question on the testimony, and I think maybe if I were to throw one other idea out there about a Titanic movie, it would be one about
Mm.
Ismay, because I want to get his name out of the mud, out of the public. I want to get his name out of the mud because 100 or so years later, he is still the coward of the Titanic, and I think that is very, very unfair.
It's really unfair. His descendant, Cliff Ismay, I've spoken to about getting on the podcast. He's got a book out about Bruce Ismay. And yeah, I'm so on board with you there. I had an idea a couple of years ago now, and I kind of like I teased it and I made like which I thought it looked shit. It was like an image. It wasn't even one of my images. It was well, actually no, it was. So I took photos of like some survivors and some people that died. So it was like Esme Andrews, Hitchens, Smith, Lightoller, and Murdoch, and Margaret Brown. And I put them just kind of I edit them so they're standing like side by side, and I just give it a black background and I put the Netflix logo and then coming soon, and I called it The Impact. And I had people messaging me and they were like, "Where did you see this? Like, when's this coming out? And I was like, oh fuck. So I had to be like, no. I was like, no, it's like a fan thing. Like, it's not actually happening. But for a good like week, people thought it was happening. But an RMS Titanic design has just said, and this was essentially kind of what I was thinking, and it's also kind of what Julian Fellows did in 2012 with the Titanic ITV series. So each episode focused on a different character, and he was using kind of fictional characters. So you didn't know if they were going to live or die because they didn't exist. But I think a lot of people don't know about a lot of different Titanic people like we do, but the vast majority of the general public wouldn't. So you could get away with using, so like Rhoda Abbott, who I talk about all the time, I don't think most people would know who she was. And so you've got a woman and her two sons who are traveling second class or third class. You don't know that she's going to live and her two children are going to die. And what a shock would that be when this woman and two children come to a lifeboat, because it's women and children first. And what a shock when Lightoller tells her that her 13 and 15-year-old sons are too old. Like, that would be such a gut punch to the audience.
Yeah.
And then for the mum to live, accidentally live, just the same way that Lightoller accidentally lived, the man that essentially sentenced her sons to death. So can you imagine the interaction that they might have on the Carpathia? Or if
and it's so different to something like their mum dying and them surviving. Pretend this is a fictional scenario, because obviously the parents' life is cut short, but it's sort of in the normal order of things for children to outlive the parents. So for it to be the other way around, two children's life snuffed out whilst the mother has to deal with it, it's like an enormous tragedy beyond comprehension. And now blow that up to 2,200 people on board, and there are so many stories there that
so many
need to be talked about.
So you've got an episode focusing on Lightoller and then an episode focusing on Rhoda. You know, and Netflix, they do pretty long series, so you could have like an 8-episode thing that each one kind of ends on a different part of the voyage / sinking.
Yeah, it could even cross over, actually.
Yes.
How interesting would it be if you had a story, an episode following Lightoller, and Lightoller is a character that you're actually growing to like, blah 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 blah, and then there's just a brief moment where he doesn't let these two men on because they're too old, and then blah 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 blah, and then 4 episodes down the line, you find out that these two men are 13 and 15 and have now been condemned to death whilst their mother survived. That would be a huge gut punch to the audience, because imagine you've grown to know and love Lightoller. He's this heroic character in his episode. He is now the villain in another person's episode, and it's, I don't know.
Because it's all like,
there's an idea there, right there.
I can totally imagine that. So like, say like episode 2, Lightoller, the people he's speaking to are off screen and there's a lot going on, and he says that you can't.
There's just a little throwaway. Oh no, too old. We're just women and children.
Yes,
you can barely see them, and then you get that scene again through their perspective.
And they're kids. Yeah,
they are kids, and they die now as a result of that.
And then the last episode is Lightoller and Rhoda getting onto the Carpathia, and like, you know, one's, I mean, okay, Lightoller was vilified as well for kind of surviving, and I think that was unfair because he should have died. Like, it was again the impossible. He survived, and it was
actually a miraculous, really.
Yeah, and Rhoda, who again miraculously survived. It's like,
having a Carpathia episode end it would be really interesting. You'd have all these different weaves, the intertwining, ending at different points. You know, they don't all make it to the final plunge portion, but they've all end up in this one place, this one small ship. I think that's a really.
And then people died on the Carpathia. Like, you could choose. I can't think of one just now, but you know, you follow a character through the whole thing. They survive, and you're like, oh, thank God they lived. And then just to find out that actually before they got to New York, they died. Like, you know, there's so much there you could do. You know, we've just
a good show idea. I'm so sad it doesn't exist.
We've just written. Hey, well, I've spoken to Jordan about this, and I've maybe mentioned it briefly, but I really, 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 really want to do an audio drama, like an online audio drama. Because you wouldn't need to worry about visual effects, just sound effects. So you know when you're on the boat deck because you can hear like seagulls or
Yeah, I've been
the
listening
life.
to so many Doctor Who ones, and the way that the sound engineers play with sound, you
Yes.
know when a scene has transitioned. You just know by the sound, and it's great. And
Yep.
it isn't a person saying, "Oh, look, now we're in a forest," because you hear the trees and you hear the birds, and it's great. And I think sound atmosphere is such a good one because I think a lot of the sound engineering in Cameron's film is really good. And now
Yep.
imagine you can't see it, you leave it all up to the imagination, and then you hear creaking metal, you hear a, a growing panic. I
I
think it's just great.
forget if I thought about it slightly longer. There's a scene. It kind of does it twice. So there's the scene where Old Rose says, "Inside, I was screaming," and then it cuts to the funnel screaming. You know, the
Yeah.
steam coming out the funnels. Excellent, brilliant, really good use of uh, diegetic noise to transition the scene. And then there's a scene
Yeah.
later on where it has the funnels, the smoke coming out the funnels really loudly as the lifeboats are being uncovered.
Mhm.
And again, yeah, you're right, you could have your eyes closed and you would know when each new scene's appearing
Yeah.
based on the sound design. And I totally want to do an audio drama. You've just hearing your ideas. I mean,
Message me about it. We'll write some scripts.
you were always going to be on board, but now you're like my right hand man. Like you're
I
we
think this Lightoller Abbott crossover idea is just I think
yeah.
there's something in there that is
Oh, there is.
making me very optimistic about this idea.
There are like writers' rooms in big studios that don't have the kind of amazing comeuppance that we've just
Yeah,
in the space of like 10 minutes, we just thought of like 2 episodes of like an 8 episode series.
that is chemistry.
you know yeah, so that's happening. I've just had old shipping lines say, "You guys have me hyped." Same. So yeah, it's gonna happen. And it's not easy to make. It would be a
No,
challenge because you've got to write it and then you've got to edit
you
it.
need a
And
team of sound engineers, and obviously, if you have one voice actor with a crappy microphone, immersion ruined, and so you have to be very precise about things like that as well. But
yes,
it's not
so
impossible. There are good fan Doctor Who audios out there, and they're impeccable. Big Finish started off as fans, I think, if I remember correctly, and now they're
I
doing
think it did.
licensed Doctor Who audio stories. So if
It's
we
one of those
don't
things.
rush it,
Yes,
don't
it's
rush it.
not easy, but it's doable. And if you've got a little idea, a little seed of an idea, just fucking do it. Like, give it a go.
RMS
Um,
Titanic Design says, "Can I do the set design?" Yes, you can design the sets for our audio drama.
for our audio drama. You can think about what noises would be happening in this room, and then you can like suggest noises. And then if it gets picked up to turn into like a visual drama, then absolutely you can be the set designer. Um, yes. Yeah, I love this. The impact will become a thing. We're making the impact. That's
Mm.
happening. I'm going to bring back that visual, but I'll just take away Netflix and I'll add like the YouTube logo. That's what I'll do, and it's red and white, so it will look just as good.
We could be 4T Studios for Time to Talk Titanic. Oh,
Oh, what's in the Four Funnel Entertainment? That's a thing, isn't it? In
is it?
Belfast, four Funnel Entertainment, yeah. But
They
we can
stole
be
my idea.
the four T's.
The 4Ts and the Ts are slanted like funnels.
Oh, see, we're working on multiple levels. All cylinders are firing right now. I like this.
The energy is palpable.
Oh, right. I need to end this before I collapse.
Yeah.
I'm feeling great. But this has been
Well,
great.
it was old shipping lines question that prompted, what would our Titanic movie look like? And then we sort of generated about 10 different story ideas.
Yep. Everyone who was on the live stream for this will get a like producer's credit. Producers, and we'll just include all of the names that are here right now.
Yeah.
I love it so much. David, thank you for coming on.
No worries. I'm very glad. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I'm too quiet, and now just a one-on-one, it's forced me to talk more and sort of give ideas. And it's about film and storytelling. So I could talk about that all day.
Yes, because actually I mentioned this at the start, but why is that? So when it comes to film, what was it that you went on to do? And so what's your kind of
Yeah,
vested interest in
I think
this?
I I've just mentioned it now. I think what got me into it is Doctor Who, but specifically Doctor Who Confidential. Back in the day, if you remember that, which was the behind the scenes show, discussing how it's done. And then when I was in year 6, so I'd be 10 to 11 years old, there was a Blue Peter competition to writing a story, and then me and 2 friends did that. We didn't win because ours was way too expensive to make. It was never gonna win, but it's like
Mm,
that kind of process. And then I went to secondary school, and I sort of like deluded myself into thinking I wanted to do engineering for some reason. So I went down
mm,
an engineering route, even though I always knew I was more creative. And then at A levels, I realized I hated it. And
mm.
then in a sudden sort of career jerk, I was like, you know what? I love film. Why don't I just do something I love? And it's film. And then, consuming film, consuming how it's made and all that kind of stuff, writing scripts. That's what's gotten me into that boat.
Yeah. I think we've all been there, myself, I was into acting. I kind of moved away from that, got more into like directing and writing, and I've always been into drawing. So I've always been that kind of creatively inclined. But we all have those moments. They can last for years, they can last for months of like, oh, I need to get like a proper job, a real job, or a real degree. And there's times I've often said it, and I kind of stick by it, that I wish I'd become a plumber because they make shit tons of money
Oh, they
because
do.
there's not many people willing to be like elbow deep in someone else's waste pipes, but
Yeah.
and that's why they make so much money. But yeah, so we all have those kind of waves of, oh, I need to do like something proper, but then actually it's like, well, no, because if there weren't jobs in creative fields, then there wouldn't be creative fields, and there are, like, and okay, if you study film and media, okay, it might not mean you go on to be a director or in a writer's room, but you could go on to do something else in that sphere and
And there's
enjoy it
nothing
just
stopping you from doing it just for fun, you know?
yeah.
Anyone
Well,
can be a writer and a director. You've all got cameras in your pockets. You can do it, you know? It might
exactly.
not be your job, but there's nothing, absolutely nothing stopping you from doing it for fun. And,
Well, when
even
David
if you
says
don't,
just for fun, I mean, I was doing drawings just for fun and then was like, would anyone like to pay me to do a drawing? And I had people actually reach out and be like, yeah, I've got a bit of disposable income and I want a drawing of this. Could you do it? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, there are ways to potentially, it might not be your sole income, but actually make a little bit of profit from having fun, doing what you enjoy.
yeah.
And if we, sorry, not if we, when we go on to do the impact, that will be on Patreon, because it's going to be something that's quite intensive and needs a bit of backing. And I think if it's promoted properly, I mean, Jesus Christ, if my drawings can make money, then our audio drama idea can make money to sustain it and get it going. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, I mean, look at the hype that the chat has had, just us like getting hyped about it. So yeah, if we can spread the hype and have fun with it, then yeah, I think it's possible. Yeah, this has been really good. Thank you all for joining as well and for taking part. John Christian has said my first production credit. Absolutely. All Chipping Lines, guys, stop, you're giving me too much hype. All Chipping Lines, this has been a blast. I had so much fun during this, and from the deepest of my heart, it's an honor to be part of this community. Yeah, I think I know. Yeah, it's really nice having this. I think when the internet is utilized the way it's meant to be, it can be quite a wholesome place and a fun place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really good that we've all stumbled upon this community and we've just completely surrendered to our obsession with a ship that sank 110 years ago. It's the way to be. There's nothing wrong with it. We're nerds and we love it. So yeah, and that's
Never
what
be
it is.
ashamed of that.
Never be ashamed. So yeah, thank you, David.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Arron.
all of you in the live stream. And yeah, see you next time.
Take care.